In the news this week, the Yes campaign fights back after Warren Mundine reveals his trip to Perth. An exclusive interview coming up.
A week of major political backflips as WA scraps its new land heritage laws. And ending homelessness, Lord Mayor candidate Sandy Angie's push for the disadvantaged ones in our city. And later, Dr. Andrew Miller's comment.
This is The Evening News with Ivan Loom and Naliva Thorne.
Good evening. The Yes campaign in Western Australia is fighting back as they are bracing for the arrival of No campaign advocate Warren Mundine this month. Lead advocate for Yes vote in Western Australia, Suresh Rajan, is arguing against Mr. Mundine's comments regarding The Voice on this program. Mr. Rajan also revealed the Yes camp is working harder to snatch the multicultural vote, which is key to The Voice success or failure. He joins me exclusively this week. Suresh, good to see you again. Before we talk about the Yes campaign's fight back, what's your response to Warren Mundine's comment on this program?
Look, I'm disappointed, and I have been disappointed with Warren Mundine's position right from the very start. He's taken a position that what he's effectively saying is that all of the disadvantage that we see with Aboriginal people that they're incurring at the present time is appropriate, and we're going to further entrench it by a no vote by saying that they're not allowed to make any change. So what he really is effectively saying is that the last 230 years of racism that we've perpetrated against Aboriginal people is appropriate and is going to continue. That's what I find really staggering, that someone like Warren Mundine would actually commit to that kind of thinking and that kind of view.
So during the interview, Warren Mundine says that both state and federal government has, quote, scored their own goals regarding the Aboriginal Land Heritage Act issue. Do you agree with that?
Look, I think there's no question the state government's timing was bad. Right from the very start of this Voice campaign, we felt that there was no need to introduce the Aboriginal Protection Heritage Protection Bill until after the Voice campaign was over. People were always going to conflate the two, and that certainly was proven to be the case.
Warren Mundine is coming to host multicultural community seminars and fundraising events. What will the Yes campaign do to counterbalance that? What we're doing is we're getting in touch with all of the multicultural groups and communities and trying to engage with them and make sure that we can speak to their members. Over this weekend, I would have done probably around about 5 events that are all multicultural community groups and or events organized by senators and members of parliament at the federal level. So I would have done all of these. I will be speaking also over the next few weeks at a number of these events. And so we're really just getting in touch with all of the multicultural communities, and particularly the young people at multicultural communities who are the future and who are really already very much entrenched in the Yes campaign, and engaging with them to continue to roll it out to their parents and to their elders in the community to say how much it is an important priority for them, for the parents to be voting yes as well. Some people within the multicultural communities I've spoken to says, why should we put one race ahead of the other? That's one of the key questions they have. How do you respond to them?
Very simply, the fact is that, the Aboriginal people have had the disadvantage perpetrated against them for 230 years. I was at a funeral yesterday for a little girl who was 1 year old, and she died at our local hospital. And 5 of the people in the congregation were actually chained by handcuffed to their security guards at that funeral. And what struck me was that these were young Aboriginal men, and there's more likelihood of Aboriginal people, Aboriginal men, ending up in jail than of them going to university. That is completely at odds with what we would consider an appropriate society. So given that they've had that disadvantage and that they are the First Nations people, they are the people who were the traditional custodians of this land, they should have rights that some of the others don't or shouldn't. But let's go back to that issue around the rights or the voice for multicultural communities. I'm on a numerous number of communities, advisory groups
for the multicultural communities to Parliament. I give advice to governments on a regular basis, both at the state level and at the federal level. So we do have a voice. We have advocacy groups like the Ethnic Communities Council, like various other multicultural services centres, etc. We already have a voice to government and to Parliament through those advisory groups. The one group that doesn't have the voice are the Aboriginal people.
And you can listen to the extended version of this interview right now on the WAMN Extra News Club by subscribing on the link in the description. Suresh Rajan, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Adam.
It's been a week of major backflips for both sides of politics over the First Nations land heritage laws, which led to shifting stances with the voice to Parliament among the Liberals and now possibly the Nationals too. Meanwhile, the relocation of the new hospital and the shutdown of the Armidale rail line may cause more trouble for the Labor government. Here is Peter Kennedy's extended analysis.
Well, it's been a week of backflips on the state political scene. The first was the state government's decision to walk away from its controversial heritage legislation, which was causing all sorts of problems, particularly in regional WA. The government had no option but to walk away from that and essentially go back to the previous legislation with some modifications. But not before the government, particularly Roger Cook, the Premier, and also Tony Booty, the relevant minister, had lost a fair bit of skin in the business. So that was the first backflip as far as the government was concerned. It had no option. And by the way, there could be some ramifications for the voice referendum campaign. Time will tell whether that's the case. The second backflip came from the Liberal side. Liberal leader Libby Mettam, who originally came out in support of the voice, saying that now she had second thoughts. In fact, she was withdrawing support from the voice. She read the tea leaves. She saw what was happening across WA generally. WA looks as if it's going to be a weak state as far as a positive vote for the voice is concerned. So Libby Mettam has seen where the direction is heading, and she's indicated that she's no longer a yes vote. And by the way, while we're talking about backflips, have a look at the National Party over the next couple of weeks. Remember when Mia Davies was leader, she indicated that she supported the voice, and she came out very early, which was contrary to the Federal Party, the Federal National Party. They indicated opposition to the voice. Well, don't be surprised if Shane Love, the leader of the National Party in WA, now comes out and indicates that the National Party no longer supports the voice. That will happen. That backflip will happen, no doubt about that. Watch out for it in the next couple of weeks. Another problem area for the government: hospitals, in particularly the Women's and Babies Hospital. The proposal to site it at Murdoch next to the Fiona Stanley Hospital. This was after all the expectation for many years that when King Edward Memorial Hospital in Subiaco closed down, the new hospital for women and babies would be on the QE2 site in Nedlands next to the Children's Hospital. That had been the expectation through the Health Department, successive governments, and now we're told, Amber Jade Sanderson, the Health Minister, says that's no longer the case. The new Women's and Babies Hospital will be at Murdoch. Well, one sense, that's fine, it's next to Fiona Stanley Hospital. However, doctors don't like it, nurses don't like it. Why don't doctors like it? Well, they say that to have the Women's and Babies Hospital well removed from the Children's Hospital in Nedlands does not make sense. 20 kilometres away by road, but also when you think of the freeway, how often is the freeway clogged? How would ambulances be going, getting perhaps a baby that was in danger from the maternity hospital, from the Women's and Children's Hospital, from the Women's and Babies Hospital in Murdoch to the Children's Hospital in Nedlands for major surgery? Because that's where the specialists are at the moment. The major specialists are there. The government's got a health problem. It's got to work through that one. And with the AMA not happy, with nurses not happy, they are unions with clout. So just watch out at how the government handles that one. A major problem for the Health Minister, yet another one. And by the way, there could be another problem for the government. Just watch out for this one. The Perth to Armidale railway line. It's going to be raised in many sections to eliminate level crossings. Eliminating level crossings, that's a very positive move. However, the fact that it's going to be raised indicates that the government has said it'll be closed for 18 months. 18 months could blow out, of course, 2 years, 2.5 years, whatever. And buses will move the passengers from Armidale to Perth along that line. Well, that would lead to, number one, a big drop in patronage, and number two, more cars and more transport on the road. So people, and by the way, they are Labor seats between Perth and Armidale. So potentially a problem for Rita Saffioti, the Transport Minister, another potential problem for the government, and it could be a little time bomb because they are all Labor seats, and this is expected to develop over the next 12 to 18 months. So problems are plenty, not only for the government, but backflips on the Liberal side, and watch out for a backflip on the National Party side when it comes to the Voice. So plenty to keep your eye on. Peter Kennedy, WAMN News.
Hi there. Are you looking for a new home or want to refinance your car mortgage to get a better rate? At AA Finance Solutions, we have the expertise and knowledge to help you to find the right loan for your needs and budgets. Contact us today. Let us help you to make your home ownership dream a reality.
AA Finance Solutions, your local mortgage broker.
Concerned WA parents have launched a parliamentary petition via the opposition this week in an attempt to build a support case against the government's plan to relocate the new Women's and Babies Hospital site. This week, Health Minister Emma Jade Sanderson presented the government's business case and justification to Parliament. Joanne Beattie, the CEO of advocacy group Helping Little Hands, says the 20 kilometres distance between Perth and Murdoch could hold disastrous consequences if not reversed.
As you can see for yourselves, there's simply no way to safely build the new Women's and Baby Hospital at the QE2 site. They found the QE2 site poses unacceptable risk to both delivery of the new hospital and to patients at Perth Children's Hospital and Sir Charles Gardner Hospital. You can now see for yourselves the evidence that to proceed with building the hospital at QE2 would have been irresponsible.
Do you agree with these findings?
I wholly disagree. The denial of access to clinical services, again, is hitting the population of neonatal premature babies. These are the forgotten patient group. It's like they are being viewed as dispendable within this argument. These babies have no voice, and although the numbers may only be within the 100 to 200 of babies being moved, each of these babies' lives are valuable and they deserve access time critically to the services available at Perth Children's Hospital.
The Cook government's adept handling of the COVID-19 pandemic has been lauded by an independent review. Independent experts who've taken part in the review include former Liberal MP and Health Minister John Day, Dr Michael Shaper and Emeritus Professor Margaret Sears AO. The trio of experts delved into the economic, social and health outcomes of the state's pandemic management strategy. The review was informed by extensive consultations with nearly 900 public submissions, which resulted in 35 recommendations that aim to enhance future threats posed by pandemics. Meanwhile, the opposition says the review is a missed opportunity as the government only focuses on successful achievements.
The review recommends that current and future governments should continue to consider the trade-offs between health, economic and social considerations when making future decisions on public health and social measures such as hard border restrictions. This is an important recommendation as governments cannot make emergency decisions through the prism of a single lens. They have to make sure that they take into the broad impact of those decisions and make sure that they make decisions in the interests of the whole community.
This report represents a missed opportunity. It was not forensic and it only looked at what worked well. While the opposition will take some time to consider the recommendations, it does represent a missed opportunity.
The Australian Nursing Federation WA has announced a bid for Parliament following being vilified and subject to heavy fines. The ANF announced this week that members will be polled in order to find out if the union should support a political party. She stated that the poll received a lot of support, though some have concerns around what this means for the union. The poll has showed almost 80% support after it closed during the weekend. The union will also organise a poll for the public to discover their opinion on the proposal. Even if nurses receive the much campaigned for 5% pay rise, they will still go ahead with the support of a parliamentary candidate. ANFWA Secretary Janet Ray said that nurses would be able to make changes they want to see, such as safe harbour legislation, if they have a voice in Parliament. The union is looking to gain 3 members in the upper house and clarify that former ANF Secretary Mark Olsen will not be running in the race.
A man has been charged with murder after a woman was found dead inside a home in Bedford. Police were dispatched to a home on Burkett Street at around 5 p.m. on Monday, where a woman was found deceased after officers arrived at the scene, and a man has also been arrested. During the evening, a large group of people gathered and grieved at a park near the crime scene. A day later, the homicide squad charged a 37-year-old man over the death of the 35-year-old woman. The Bedford man was charged with murder, and he appeared in the Perth Magistrates Court on Wednesday.
And now here's Austin Pollock with what's coming up on 6 News Tonight.
Thanks guys. On 6 News Tonight, Matilda's semi-final opponents locked in, preparing to face England on Wednesday night after last night's heart-stopping penalty shootout. Labor looking to avoid politicising the voice to Parliament as one Liberal leader changes her stance, now revealing she'll vote no. And the death toll in Hawaii rises to 89, with officials saying rebuild efforts from the fires could cost more than $8 billion. Watch live on our YouTube channel and on our website, 6newsau.com. For now though guys, it's back to you.
Thanks, Austin. And this weekend marks the end of Homelessness Week, and let's hope some action has been done. What are your thoughts, Ivan?
Very interesting, and of course this issue has quite a bit to do with the Lord Mayor election campaign, which is coming up in October. And with more about that, here's Grace.
Thanks, Ivan and Melly. Welcome to Western Perspective. I'm Grace Harrington. Homelessness Week 2023 is a time to raise awareness of people experiencing homelessness and sleeping rough within our community. The theme this year is It's Time to End Homelessness. Shelter WA has led a variety of activities this week to help showcase the effects of homelessness and to shine a light on the wonderful service providers who are going above and beyond to support those in need. We spoke with Perth Lord Mayor candidate Sandy Angie about Homelessness Week and some of the potential solutions to homelessness within the Perth community. Sandy, we're here with you today during Homelessness Week here in Perth. Could you tell me a little bit about what's been happening around the city this week with Homelessness Week?
Yeah, so this week's Homelessness Week across the country, and the theme is It's Time to End Homelessness. So really it's a time for us to all think about what we can all do as a community through all levels of government and through the community as well on how we can improve the homelessness situation in Perth and across the country. So Shelter WA has held a number of sessions over the week, as have other organisations. I'm looking forward to their wrap-up event tomorrow afternoon in the city to hear about all the work they've been doing this week. So yeah, it's a large program of events.
That's wonderful, and I believe that Shelter were able to secure $60,000 worth of funding to put towards different communities and them being able to showcase the different issues and potential solutions to homelessness. Can you explain a little bit better about what some of the activities that have been going on are?
Yeah, so I guess one thing from a City of Perth perspective that we've run for the last couple of years was this idea of a safe night space. So what a safe night space is, it's an interim solution. So obviously the only way to solve homelessness is through more homes. You know, obviously with the current, affordability crisis in housing and rental crisis, we don't have enough homes. And so, obviously the state government is working hard to deliver more homes to make them available to people. But in the interim, what we need is interim accommodation to get people off the streets. And so Safe Night Space was one of the City of Perth initiatives to do that. And that's successfully taken over 240 women off the street and into homes.
How exactly has the Safe Night Space been able to do that? What are these homes that it's taken women into?
Yeah, so the Safe Night Space, as I said, it's not a home. It's a place where people can go to get assistance to be transitioned into a home. So through various support services and different community organisations, they can then assist these people into a home. So in the City of Perth, as I said, we've had this the last couple of years, this initiative. It is currently scheduled to close at the end of the year, but the administration is looking at how can we do this perhaps in another location, in another format, to keep it going, to help people off the street and into a home.
It seems really wonderful. I read that it's supported about 795 women in one way or another, which is pretty incredible. What might this alternate format be going forward?
Yeah, so we've got the City of Perth administration looking at that now, but obviously, the idea is to help people off the street and into a new home and provide them with a safe place to sleep. It's only for a number of nights while we assist them. But, that alternate format, I guess, looking at other precedents of what other communities are doing. And, the aim is to, I guess, help people, but also minimise the impact on the surrounding area. So, in this situation, one of the reasons it's closing at the end of the year is there was some impacts for neighbouring residences. So how can we minimise that in a new model going forward? But it's an initiative that has proven to help people off the street. So something that we definitely need to look at how we can do that in another way.
And I see that you plan throughout your campaign, and should you be successful at the election, you plan to work with the state government and the community to explore more diverse and appropriate accommodation options. I guess it's $1 million question, how can we end homelessness? It's not going to happen overnight, especially with the rising cost of living, but what are some other housing options that you see as viable?
Yeah, so I guess the idea is that everyone needs to play their role in ending homelessness. So the idea is if the city can help support the issue and play its part, and encourage other local governments to do the same, so that the load is shared across the community. So I think that that's a key part of the message that I have, is that, by the city playing its part and encouraging, setting a precedent for other local governments to do the same, so we all share the load. In terms of affordable housing, earlier this year, the City of Perth announced incentives to encourage more development in the CBD district, the part of our city. Could we extend these incentives to other parts of our city, in particular, for example, West Perth or Northbridge? We already have student accommodation in Northbridge and areas Stirling Street and Pierce Street. What incentives could we provide to get more accommodation and different forms? Build to rent, co-living options, so we have a diversity of housing and choice.
Wonderful. And finally, locally, especially with the Rockingham by-election and your campaign now, homelessness seems to be the word on everyone's lips. Do you think that with the publicity the local homelessness issue has been getting, have you seen a greater response and greater involvement in Homelessness Week this year?
Yeah, I think it's something I know from when I stood for election in 2020. It was a big topic of conversation, and it's just not going away. It's obviously challenges in Perth, across the country and around the world, and it's something that, it's a time on Homelessness Week or during Homelessness Week to think about what we could do, but something that we need to be focused on every day. And I guess, that's another part of my campaign platform is, full-term Lord Mayor. It's something that needs our constant focus and constant attention of the city. It's not a problem. It's a complex problem. It's not going to be a problem that's solved overnight, but it's something that we have to work on continuously.
And you said that there will be an event to wrap up the week tomorrow night, is that correct?
Oh, so it's at Shelter WA tomorrow afternoon. It's a presentation of some of the work they've been doing. So if people are interested, they can just log on to Shelter WA and on the website, and it's free ticket to go along and see the presentations of the last day of Homelessness Week in Perth.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much for your time, Sandy.
Your time.
That was Sandy Angie. You can read more of our weekly premium stories now on WAMN Extra News Club, supporting independent local news and keeping democracy strong. And now, here is Dr. Andrew Miller with his weekly medical and news commentary.
Hi, thanks very much for your time. A lot of us were puzzled when the West Australian government made a decision without consultation to decide to build the new Women and Children's Hospital down at the Fiona Stanley Murdoch precinct, and not, as had long been planned for, at the QE2 site. The main objection of clinicians is that it's a lot more complicated than it looks to duplicate the necessary paediatric services of the Children's Hospital and make them available for the time that they're going to be needed for babies who are acutely unwell when they're born down at Murdoch. Now, it may seem simple to get a few extra staff, but in fact you need entire teams, you need facilities that are dedicated for dealing with the very unwell children in those circumstances. And these may be rare situations that they're required. So it's not possible to have them standing by in two locations in a city the size of Perth on a sustainable basis. And there's been no convincing explanation in the business case put forward last week, which largely focused on the cost and the timing and the difficulty of building at the QE2 site. Of course, it's also going to be difficult to build at the Fiona Stanley site. It's a very busy site indeed, so wherever it's done, they're going to have to cope with all of the disruption and all of the problems of building what is going to be an important investment for Western Australia, but a shame that the decision was made without consultation, it seems, of any significant kind with the medical or the midwifery or the patient community in order to come to an understanding of the nuance of the detail that had been put into the planning in the original location. And on a broader level, along with the abandonment of the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act, because that seems to be unworkable, it seems as though this government's having real problems in making considered, timely decisions on things that are going to be implemented properly and work properly. And we've faced that for a long time in the areas of ambulance ramping and so on, which they seem to have just now expect the public to accept is part of being a public patient, is that you, or a severely ill patient, is you just have to wait. And in a rich state like ours that has the resource and should have the wherewithal to organise these things properly, that's just not good enough for the vulnerable patients of our community, not good enough for those people who are waiting in line for elective surgery. And hopefully this government, having got a bit of a fright in recent polls, might start to show some humility and be a lot better at consulting with the people who are affected by such massive decisions. Thanks very much for your time.
That was Dr. Andrew Miller, and that's Western Perspective for this week. Until next Sunday evening, it's back to you, Ivan and Melly.
Thanks, Grace. And that's our weekly news and current affairs. We have the latest news on our website, wamnnews.com.au.
Don't forget to subscribe to the WAMN Extra News Club so we can continue our work in the community. Full details on wamnnews.com.au/news/extra. From Melly, Grace, Peter and myself, wish you good health, good night. See you next Sunday.
Thanks for watching.